Good evening. This is the Rowley Finance Committee meeting of November 14th, 2017, 7:19 and a half. And we call the meeting to order. First item is to approve the minutes of October 17th, 2017. I think we've all had a chance to review the minutes. Are there any questions or anything on the minutes?
No, I didn't have
We
any.
have a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion.
Second it.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Next is item 3. Excuse me. Concerns over the live cable feed for the town meeting. The selectmen met with RCM, and evidently it's not feasible or cost effective to have a live cable feed. The town meeting is still going to be at the Pine Grove School. It's going to be in the gym rather than the all-purpose room. So when you walk into the main building as you normally do, and instead of taking a right, you'll take a left and go down the hall about 200 feet.
I have a question. Wouldn't they be able to do it upstairs, or there's not enough room?
No.
You would-
That's too small.
But you can't do live upstairs either.
You can't, even though we have it down here, you
No,
can't.
you don't
bring
have it upstairs, no.
It's a video recorded when it's upstairs, and the occupancy from the
Is nice.
fire department wouldn't cover it.
Oh,
Did anybody look at the possibility of just running some temporary wires down the hallway, to get the live feed? Because I know that,
I guess that's what they looked at.
okay, because there's a cost that I know, but I didn't know whether that was, if somebody looked at that or got a number on that.
I'm sure that's what they were looking at, because that would be the only way that you could do it, would be to
Yeah, because
tie into the all-purpose room.
Yep, and then run
and
temporary wires down the
Run
hallway.
wires
too.
down,
Yep.
but
And they're going to record it, so that if there's something you wanted to see or hear about, you can go to the TV afterwards the next day and see it, or go to your computer.
or even better, come to the meeting
But
live.
come to the meeting if you would want to vote on something anyway. Seeing it at home isn't gonna help you vote.
All the more reason to come and join us.
Yes.
Okay, item 4, Triton Regional School District budget drivers. I think we all got the memo. It's been presented at the Board of Selectmen's meeting, so I'm not going to go over everything there. The only highlights that I want to make are for the special education out-of-district costs. They're estimated to increase by $500,000. Last year, they decreased by $350,000. So you're looking at a delta there of $850,000. And there's the possibility of about 4 to 6 more students coming in. So that number can go up significantly. At the district communications meeting that Peter went to and I did as well, Triton is looking at what needs to be done in other areas to hopefully offset these costs rather than just tack it on to their budget at this point. And just as a summary, the anticipated changes are 2.2 million, are about over 700,000 for each of the 3 towns, if it stands the way it is. Any questions or comments?
it's a lot of money.
Yeah, Larry.
Yes.
Dave Peterson from the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen went up and made a presentation to the school committee earlier in the year, late summer, early fall. for keeping the budget down. This is like a sledgehammer, this particular memo. If the last 2 years, Triton, the Triton bill to Newbury has actually gone down, so that Salisbury and Rowley have absorbed all of the increase. Each year we've had to draw substantial money out of free cash to make up the difference. If their budget is starting out $2 million before they do any program changes or any account for any other increases such as heat and fuel and electricity, we're going to use every amount of our free cash, plus maybe laying off people or cutting town budgets to make this go. I mean, because every year that we use free cash to fund the budget, that's one-time money. And we have to keep going for the following years. In the last 3 years, we've put in, I think, well over $1.5 million into the Triton budget. A good portion of that out of free cash. So we have a real crisis here. And I can't emphasize it enough that I don't know what the answer is. I don't have an answer, but keep in mind that, you know, if the Triton budget goes up $2 million, we have major problems. They're gonna, if we have enough free cash to cover it, they're gonna eat up every cent of it. So we're looking at some major reduction in the town budget. And I've talked before, it's a possibility of just saying, hey, we're gonna be bankrupt. We just can't, we can't keep on year after year funding the increases like we've been doing the last 3 or 4 years of Triton. And I'm not against the schools. I mean, it's not the reductions in state aid, the taxpayers. We set the new tax rate last night with the Board of Assessors. It's up, each taxpayer, the average house is going to be up $200 a year on the bill. We haven't even started looking at what the costs are going to be for the police and fire and the school. That's going to be, and those increases aren't reflected in the tax bill yet. So I mean, you know, we've been able to cover these charges the last few years, but you know, I think it's a matter of, after this memo, my feeling is to go back to Triton and have another meeting with them and say, hey, you know, I don't know what you're going to do, what we're going to do, but we're going to go broke, and we're going to be laying off employees or cutting budgets. Or I don't know what the answer is at this point. It's still early in the budget season, but you know, we're allowed to increase by 2.5% the amount of money available, and the new growth, I think Sean said it was $145,000. We only give about 50% of that to Triton. You know, it gives us, say, $400,000 at the most, maybe $300,000 to give to Triton if they're looking for $1 million. The rest of that money is going to be made up out of free cash. So, and I understand, you know, parents and stuff like that want to keep the schools going, and we all do. But you know, if you can only milk the cow for so long, there's no more milk, and that's about where we are. We're about out, and we've been frugal over the years trying to fund these things. And we appreciate the fact that the taxpayers have given us the overrides for the school and for the you know, for the school building and the police and fire station building, both of which we desperately need. But these budget increases just they're gonna kill us. So just a word to the wise and people watching. Understand that as we start to go through the budgets, you know, after the first of the year, that we got some real problems here if this kind of an increase is anticipated already at this time of year, because I don't know how we handle it. I don't know how the other two towns, you know, it all depends on a lot of factors that go into how the Triton budget split up. But the last 2 years Triton has been basically split 50-50 with Salisbury and Rowley. In fact, we even pick up more because last year Newbury actually had a $200,000 reduction in their assessment. So, you know, we're picking up all these numbers. And if we had to come up with $1 million, I don't know how we're going to do it. So, thank you.
Dave, do the selectmen from the 3 towns ever get together?
Yeah,
at the
Joe
same
Perry,
time
the
to-
chairman's meeting with, and Larry's been going up to the selectmen's meetings and the finance meetings up in Salisbury. Newbury really doesn't show any signs of wanting to be involved. I mean, they're reductions, they're getting reductions, so they're not too interested.
I was wondering
But Joe
if you-
Perry has been, talks to, he goes to the school committee meetings and he talks to the people from Salisbury and Newbury as much as he can, so. But it's just, you know, it's a situation that the state really needs to come in and say, hey, wait a minute, these special ed costs, I mean, we end up with 5 or 6 out of town, out of the system placements. I mean, the school doesn't have any control of that either. The raises, I mean, they bargained a 2 2.75% raise, and probably half or more of the teachers get a step increase of another 2%. So, 50%, I'm going to say 50, I could have the number wrong, of their employees are getting a 5% raise. And we're giving our employees a 2.25%. So, something, and I assume that the other thing is, as you see on the sheet there, the raises account for $1 million. Well, I'm assuming that they probably signed a 3-year contract, and more than likely, this is another $1 million next year and another $1 million in the third year. So, I mean, I don't know that, but I'm surmising that that's probably the case. So, I mean, there's no end to this. Right now, the next 3 years, there's no end to this. And if we can skinny by this year by stripping everything else out of the budget, I don't know, what do we do next year? It's very dire at this point, and I hate to be that way, but I'd like to be optimistic about things, but it's just not good.
One of the things they talked about was not something that's gonna happen immediately, but they were floating the idea, because they had this thing with discussions with other town, there was a report that they could do like a dual 2 tax rates, one for school and one for, I'm not sure that would work out too good, but because they'd be pitting the elderly against, the people who had kids in school, but they're talking about having 2 separate tax rates, one for the school and one for the town itself.
Yeah, I'm not
Something
sure
like
what that
that,
is. I don't see how it's going to work. A lot of the kids, a lot of the families, the young families that have kids in school, they're probably in a worse position than what a lot of the elderly are as far as the tax bills going up. They're strapped too. So
I don't think there's a choice. You would have to participate in both tax,
Yeah, I mean,
for
it's-
school and everything, so.
I mean, they're talking about changing the formula for how the budget is divvied up between the 3 towns, but that's going to take 2 years. And I'm not sure at this point, Newbury has, from what I understand, Newbury doesn't have much interest in it, because obviously at this point, they're happy with Triton budget, because they're actually getting reductions, so any change would have to be a unanimous vote of all 3 towns, so it's not going to be simple.
Okay, any other comments? That kind of leads into item 5, the inviting the representatives of Newbury and Salisbury to our meeting. I've been to the Salisbury, I regularly try to attend the Salisbury Selectmen's meetings, which are at the same time as Rowley. And their warrant advisory committee meets intermittently. Their next meeting is scheduled in January. They were receptive to have an individual come here. They might be at our next meeting or something like that. But as far as they're having their numbers, they don't expect anything until January, when they get some initial figures for their budget, just to see where things are. Newbury, unfortunately, they're meeting tonight, same night they meet kind of the same night that we do. They're meeting with their selectmen this evening to kind of discuss their budget issues and things like that. So unfortunately, I couldn't attend it, but they hold meetings a little more regularly, and I will see if I can attend those and talk with them about their feelings and all. But Salisbury is in the same predicament that we are, because of they just have the new library, the new police station. They have other projects that are ongoing, so they're not, I'm not gonna say they're not financially unstable, but they're having the same problems that we're having as far as trying to fund everything that they need to fund. So it's going to be an ongoing effort, and we'll just see what we can do, or I'll keep you informed. I'll try to go to as many of their meetings as I can. And anybody have any suggestions or concerns, they can see me, and I'll pass them on to their committees. Any comments on the other towns? Okay. Let's go to the reserve fund transfer request. Debbie, you want to explain this since it's your item?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, as you know, the owners of the Didex building at 395 Main Street have approached the town with the interest of donating the building and the property that it rests on to the town. They have outgrown the building for their distribution. It's educational distribution company, and they're looking for a larger facility. They also own an adjacent parcel to this, to the building, that they're prohibited from developing. It's a fairly large-sized parcel under a zoning board of appeals decision, because this is a grandfathered non-conforming use in the outlying district. So they have approached the town. I went on a site visit. Mr. White came. I asked him to come with me. And some of the selectmen came, planning board representative attended, and we all expressed an interest in this facility. It's quite large. We could move several town offices there. So I immediately contacted the town's attorney, and working out a plan of how we would review this property to make sure that it would be something that, not just on the surface, but in fact that we would be able to take over if we can work out this deal and make sure that there is no environmental issues, no title issues and things like that. So I am doing some title work right now. I also need to do a phase 1 site assessment, which is customary practice when a municipality is interested in purchasing property, to make sure there's nothing there. There was a site assessment done in 1993 when Didex bought the properties. They did one, obviously, for their bank and their financing reasons, that people want to make sure there's nothing there. So, and that was fairly positive. So now I just need to go through this and check it out for the town, and we don't have the funds available. We weren't planning on this when we did the budget last February. So the idea would be that I would request the Finance Committee to transfer the $2,500. I have a quote from DeRosa Environmental. We've used them in the past. They're a very good firm. Get that site assessment done, and then maybe at the spring special town meeting, transfer the money back in. I can find it someplace else to replenish the reserve fund.
Okay. And you've also identified some potential departments that are interested in moving there. And I don't know if you're familiar with where the Didex building is, but it's just right on down 1A, so it's very convenient.
Where would these departments move from? Which departments are interested?
We haven't decided on a plan yet. I know that there are some technical departments at the Town Hall Annex that work in some small quarters that I think would appreciate a little more space. I know the Light Department went on a tour. They were interested as well. They're outgrowing some of their space needs. So it's still That would have to be planned out, you know, if and when
Right.
we can actually accept this property, we require a town meeting vote to accept the donation of this property. So I think, you know, we're working on that at the same time Selectman Peterson's here. We're also trying to work on the elevator project at the annex and seeing how that space would work out. And, you know, this could possibly be an alternative to having the,
The
How many
big
square
the
feet
big
is
thing
the
really
building?
is if we can get that building, most of the annex offices could move over there along with the light department. And we could eliminate the need for the elevator at the annex, which is gonna be very expensive, very complicated. If we don't get Didex, we've gotta do something with the annex, so we're really keeping our fingers crossed that everything moves forward.
Is
The other thing is if we get the light department to take the building's in two sections. You got the main floor as you look up from Route 1A, that's the first floor. That's where all the office space would be, and basically would be where we'd be moving town hall offices and probably an extra meeting space and so on and so forth. The light department is interested in maybe a couple of offices upstairs, but using the downstairs, which is around the back of the building. It's large enough they could park vehicles and stuff in there and negate them having to enlarge their building.
How many square feet?
And the other good thing about that is if we go in with the light department, we would share utility costs, which would relieve our budget somewhat. And it would leave the annex, if those offices did move, it would leave the annex, could pretty much take over the whole first floor over at the Council on Aging could take over pretty much the whole first floor over there because they're looking for more space. So it's kind of a swip and swap around, and we need this money, because what we're looking at now is, we were gonna have a fall town meeting originally, but when it became obvious that we weren't gonna be able to fund the elevator project at this point with CPC money, there was no real need to have a fall town meeting and the expense of it. But this here gives us, so when we go to the Springtown meeting, if everything is moving along, we would be looking for the town to accept the donation at that time, hopefully. But in the meantime, we'd have all these site assessments and all these other things done so that we'd be ready to move right along with the project, so.
Can that be, is there any chance that that could be a revenue to the town as well, like leasing out some space if it looks like it's got, what, 43,000 square feet, somewhere in that range?
I thought it was 20-something thousand, but we weren't really looking to lease it because if the light department takes the whole downstairs, we want most of the upstairs and they'd want some. The trade-off would be the ability of the light department to pay a lot of the utility bills and stuff like that. To add someone private over there and share it with town office space just doesn't, I mean, we're desperately in need of office spaces.
It's a possibility, but right now, there's enough interest in the other departments, in the light department, to occupy the place. So it would depend on which departments want to move over there, and we'll say the Council on Aging taking over the whole first floor of the annex, and then if there's other space left over, what do we do with it? But right now, we're not counting on leasing out any of that space as a prerequisite for making it the Didex acceptance a viable thing.
But basically, if the light department decides they don't want to go there, that would free up that whole basement that maybe someone would be interested in renting it, but part of the problem over there is you're really off the beaten path. You know, commercial interests want to be over on Route 1 in that area. Didex is really out. I mean, it was an ideal building for them 25, 30 years ago when they took it over, because they didn't deal with the public. They were strictly distributing educational material. So for someone to go in there as a commercial enterprise or something is going to be difficult. Plus, it means we have to do a lot more. We would have to put a lot more money into it to make it leasable. So we're really looking at the light department and the town office space too. But it's always, who knows at this point. If we can get the building, the big savings we're going to have is the ability to move the annex stuff over there. because we desperately, all those offices over there desperately need more space. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're packed in like sardines on that first floor, and, you know, the access for handicapped, et cetera, is marginal over there as it is. And even if we give the annex to the Council on Aging, we're still gonna have to do some repairs and some other things over there to make the first floor totally accessible the way it should be. But the long-range plan is an opportunity that came up suddenly. We had no idea until Didax approached the board and approached Debbie. And it's just something that when we all went down and looked at the building, it's something we need to take advantage of. And Didax wants to, if they don't sell it to us, or if they don't give it to us, their only option at this point is to tear it down, because they can't develop the other land with that building being used for commercial purposes. So it's a double-edged sword for them, and it's an opportunity for us to really get a building that's in basically good shape and gives us space that we're desperate for in terms of town office space and town needs.
Will that free up space in the annex building that you could maybe use that for rental? I mean, I'm just looking for
Yeah, no,
a
it's
potential for.
not without making it handicapped accessible.
Well, I
You
mean-
can't use the upstairs
Well, not
because
for
it's-
public use. I mean, if a private company wanted to come in and use that for whatever their, I don't know if it's zoned for business
No, I
or
mean,
whatever.
we need to do something with the Council on Aging. They need more space, and rather than, you know, it's ideal for them. We've developed the parking lot over there, and they would like to have the whole first floor. And if we do anything with the other floors, it's so expensive. I mean, the handicapped access
It-
things are just unbelievably expensive to break
Is
up
the selectmen
apart.
gonna look at, offsetting this somehow with, additional revenue? I mean, here we are, looking for revenue and ways of not cutting budgets and things of that nature. I mean, you get a whole building, which I know is in good shape, and you're moving people over to expand their spaces, but still, is there any possibility of generating some revenue between either of those buildings?
I wouldn't bank on it. I mean,
Yeah.
I hate to be pessimistic in that way. I mean, we're certainly open to any kind of suggestions as we move this project along, but, it's a matter of, as we all know, we're packed in everywhere and for town office space, and like I say, our big look is at the light department moves there. That will really,
How much tax revenue will we lose with that? I didn't look at, I looked at.
I want to say it was, 40 or 50,000, I don't remember for sure. I had asked Sean at one time, but I don't recall it.
So would we be losing that revenue then, right?
Yeah, we're gonna lose it anyway.
Lose it anyway.
Because they're gonna tear the building.
Right.
They can't, under the way the ZBA ruling is, they cannot lease that building to anybody else. I mean, or they can't, they can
sell
lease
it.
it to somebody else, but then they have 20 or 30 acres in the back.
Yeah, now they have
They have
plans
a-
on developing the surrounding area and putting in condos or,
There's around 20 or 30, 20, 25 houses they wanna put in the back there, which will
Right.
be income, and they'll also
Right.
school kids, I'm sure, but
which
they can't do that
right
unless
now.
they either tear down this building or basically give it to us. That's the option they have, but bound by that ruling.
Do they have to go through that property to get to the adjoining property?
There may be a shared road at some point, or there may be,
Yeah.
there's another way they can build a road up.
The front part of it would be a public road, and then there would be, we'll say, a driveway to the building for the town, and then a separate driveway to access the housing area.
And it comes down near the trains, right?
Right. They would have
The
a
backside of the river.
pathway to the,
Yeah, because that's what I thought.
to the
I'm
train station.
kind of familiar with I live down that way.
And our goal is to get this project started, and then, obviously, we hate to be drawing on your money this quickly, but on the other hand, it's a kind of imperative that we know where we stand, and our goal would
Right.
be to reimburse the committee at the Maytown meeting.
No, I think we have
if
to
you
move
need it,
ahead
you may
with
not.
it.
With it, yeah.
And it's not, it's only $2,500.
Yeah, we take it out of our budget, the selecting expense money, then we're gonna come back to you at some point and be looking for more expense.
And,
money.
that'll
already
be
do a lot.
replenished.
Now, Dave, if the light department went down to that building, would they still maintain the other building where they
Well,
are now?
that's to be determined.
Yeah.
There's things we'd like to do with that building too.
Yeah,
if we
yeah,
could.
that's what I was wondering, yeah.
There's a lot going on, nothing's cast in stone, it's a matter of, but just keeping, this helps us keep the project moving and keep the doors open so that we're in a position to say to Didax, yep, we've done all these preliminary things, we'd like to, we've told them we want the property, but we have to go through like this site assessment for hazardous materials and stuff, it's something you need to look at a commercial site before you take it, so.
Is the interior of this building like a warehouse, or is it already divided into like offices?
The first floor has got a wide, a very large, open room, and it's surrounded by, I think it's around 16 individual offices around the sides on that first floor. Downstairs is where it was their warehouse for all their school supplies. And that's a very large, got a big garage door, so the light department could actually, they could put another door in there too. Park their trucks inside, and park their equipment, and so on and so forth. So it's really two different buildings in one
Yeah, yeah.
in that regard. And it's, near as we can tell, we'll check it later, but they just re-roofed in the last few years ago. It's all heated and air conditioned. I mean, they store school supplies in there, so they keep the building tight and, so that when we go in there, it's, obviously we'll have the building gone over by an inspector before we actually take it, but, it's not a building that's run down or been let go or anything like that. It's actively being used, and they've kept it up in excellent condition from the looks that we did. Like Larry was with us. And it's an opportunity we just can't not look at.
I'll make a motion that we accept the transfer.
I will second that.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the $2,500 transfer signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alright. Everybody's signature.
Is there a time frame, as to
No,
when
well-
they have to get out of there?
Well, originally
Originally,
they were talking like 6 months, but that was the real estate guy talking. And our lawyer has been meeting with their lawyer, and they haven't even found another place to go to yet, so it's gonna be extended, an extended period of time. I think if they find another place, they're gonna move out of there as soon as they can. But then, and they've got the legal work to do with the ZBA and so on and so forth to get the room adjusted so they are able to do all this.
So why would they have an agreement that they'd have to tear the building down to?
That was done 25 years ago, and
Oh.
they, I guess they were anticipating being there forever, I don't know.
But what's the logic behind that? I don't know what.
That was between, at the time, that was done with Raleigh Printing occupied the building. When they sold it to Didax, that was the agreement, because where it's a non-conforming use, they had to go before the ZBA, and for whatever reason, that's what they worked out with the ZBA, and that's the written decision the ZBA has, and it's boxed them in at this point. It looked good at the time, I guess, but obviously at this point. And they're looking at it, they'd rather give it to us than spend a couple of $100,000 to tear it down and haul it away.
Yeah.
So, and if they got the backland they can sell with 30 or 40 houses, or 20, whatever the number is, it's a substantial amount of money they're gonna have, so that's what their main interest now is to sell the backland or use the backland for housing. Just get this off their hands, whether they tear it down or give it to us, it doesn't matter to them apparently.
Now, tax-wise, there's an obvious advantage to donating it rather than tear it down, so. Okay, let's move on. Item 7, monthly appropriation report.
I don't think we had enough time to look at this, so can I make a motion to delay it till next meeting?
Sure, I apologize for not having it earlier to you, but
Well, can I just
sure.
I just want to ask a question. One thing I noticed was the town accountant for,
What page, Peter?
that's page 2. So, it's obviously more than 68%.
For the expenses,
For the wages. So was there somebody that they just hired for accountants? I mean, what,
We did, oh, you're talking about the assistant town accountant?
yeah,
Yeah, we did have a vacancy.
so did they hire someone now, and how long has that person been?
Probably about, maybe 2 months.
There's
So we'll have-
$18,000 left in there.
Well, yeah, well, so we should have some money in the, the rainy day fund for that. I don't think they're gonna spend it anywhere else in the budget, right?
That's only can be
from-
spent for the assistant town accountant wages.
What's that? That's the,
Yeah, that can't be put somewhere else.
I mean, there may have been some extra hours that needed to be put in to catch up or whatever, but.
so, but the current year budget is that the regular salary for the business, or is it just based on the time?
We budgeted $20,920
20.
for the assistant town accountant.
So you're probably only gonna spend about maybe 10,000 of that for the end of the year, right?
I wouldn't say so. We
Not-
filled
well,
that
yeah.
you
position
don't know
fairly
because
quickly.
it could be that she might have to work to catch up for the, 6 months that no one was there.
No, I'm just
I-
I'm trying to look for ways in the budgets that we can, anticipate what might be a day of reckoning with the striking schools, I don't know.
Well-
So,
Well, we're
from,
already, the accounting department's part-time. So we have a town accountant who works 20 hours a week, and
Yeah.
assistant town accountant works about 18.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're already
Yeah.
struggling with it,
Plus the assistant fills in for vacations and
Yeah.
sick, and I mean, those hours, it may be, 4 or 5,000 left at the end of the year, but I mean, that's not gonna do much to fill any holes.
I mean, we don't have.
If it doesn't get
full-time.
spent, it ends up in the free cash for next year, so.
Yeah, if there's anything left, it's, maybe have $1,000. I mean,
Okay.
the vacancy wasn't that long. We were very fortunate to be able to fill it. Ellen Petrillo left. She was excellent. Moved on to a full-time, more hours accounting position in another town with benefits. This doesn't even pay benefits.
No, because it's 18 hours.
Assistant town accountant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty lean, and it's hard to recruit people with a bachelor's degree in accounting with experience that can just walk right in and pick up,
Right.
not have a lot of training required.
We end up getting up there, it seems like, we get someone that's there for
Yeah.
a few months to a
it's-
year or two, and
It's very hard for the town
then
accountant.
they move on to a full-time position somewhere else. It's really.
With better
it's
benefits.
It's a training position. We're training people for other jobs, but
Right.
that's the way it is, and nothing we can do about that
Yeah.
budget-wise, but.
So, again, I'll make a motion that we table this till next meeting.
Sure. Do I have a second
Oh, it's okay.
to table or continue it till next meeting? Did I get a second?
second.
Oh,
Second,
okay.
sure.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, set next meeting date. Debbie, is there anything important coming up in December? that you know of?
I can't think of anything unless, we get some more, budget data. But no matter what we look at on the revenue side, it's just this, the bad news with the school budget is that drives the town budget. So if you can get a strategy session with a representative of Salisbury, that would be nice.
Want to try for January 9th?
Is that a Tuesday?
Yes. 7:15.
there any chance that we could have, maybe the town accountant to have that report for the closeout of last year?
Well,
Got it.
you do have that.
Is this what you're
Yeah,
looking for?
yeah,
She hasn't closed the books officially, but she said to use that sheet, nothing's
Oh.
changing
Is
on
that part of
that.
this?
Yeah,
package
it's in there,
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
yeah, you got it.
So that shows you what
What
we
was
closed
left.
out with.
here? Yeah, and that's just, it's good to have to,
Yeah.
as we go through the budget, see
Right.
where.
Right.
It is.
I know Peter
Yeah.
always asks that, so that's not official, but close to.
That is, she said nothing is gonna change on that, she just hasn't officially closed the whole town books.
Okay.
So, you can use that, and I'm gonna be using that when I prepare the next year's budget, when I put in the actual expended column. And the October report, I mean, we pay bills every 2 weeks, so, when she has to post everything, and, so that's why, with the October closeout, I didn't get that till the end of last week. And then, we got it out to Teresa today, I apologize, but I was tied up all day yesterday. The town accountant had left it for me on Monday.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
No, second.
Seems no. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming, or listening, or watching.